given the current changing systems as we are. Now, development is one of the most, what is the term? Not stagnated. Is one of the most slow-moving elements as far as change is concerned. Most of it is tied to investments that are built within government systems. And so when we are evaluating development or when we're evaluating growth, we tend to look at the growth or the development gains as a country in general. So we talk of the Human Development Index, or we talk of the GDP, and mostly it's from a macro point of view, but then this does not necessarily translate at the micro level. So what are the changes? And this has happened because there has not been spaces within which communities can say, hey, this is our point of view, this is what we have in terms of growth and gains, this is what we've done. Mostly we look at the macro level, so we are talking of this country has this and this and this and this in terms of development gains, or this county has this in terms of growth. And a lot of times the mega projects that are proposed may look like they are supposed to open up a country or a community to whatever other resources it is that we have determined accumulate into what we think development looks like. But then that might not be what the priority is for this particular community. So how do we get to a point where we can have balance, where the local needs that there are or local knowledge that there is also contributes to what development at the macro level looks like? So when you think of rethinking development design, right now in Kenya we're talking a lot about bottom up, bottom up, bottom up. When you talk about bottom up, what this means is that we start creating development agendas at the bottom of the pyramid, where the knowledge and the information gotten at the micro level, all of this come together and contribute to whatever agenda we have at the top. But is that the case as far as development is concerned? Also, there are things that are continuously changing. So for instance, let me give an example of what happened during the pandemic. You were doing something to do with child development, and then all of a sudden there's a pandemic and development priorities shift. So where now do you get the resources to continue with whatever agenda it is that you have? You have to shift whatever it is that you're working on to suit what exactly the development agenda is. And we've seen that happen through the pandemic and then now with climate action. And you have local developments or grassroots organizations struggling to keep up. So you have an organization that looks like something that has 7 different identities because they're covering 7 different thematic areas, because they're trying to fit whatever it is that they're doing into what they think the global development agenda is, negating the fact that the main reason for their existence is to figure out what their community needs and work on that. So how exactly do you justify your community needs and link that with the global agenda? How do you stay unique but still contribute to the global agenda? That is what we're talking about when you think about rethinking development design. So the frameworks that we are proposing are based off of balancing global expertise with what we call empathy. And empathy is basically a mindset of design thinking, where you give as much weight to local needs, you give as much weight to indigenous knowledge systems as you give to global expertise. So most of the time in the development world, when we talk about capacity building or we talk about communication, we are mostly looking at how do I communicate my agenda to the community that I'm designing for. But it's never about how do I create a space that allows the community to speak to me about what their actual needs are, and not necessarily try to adjust their needs according to what they think that I as the development partner want to hear. So how do you balance community knowledge, community needs, community development needs with global development needs and expertise? The second bit is design thinking plus doing. And what we are doing here is moving empathy past just you being in a room, in a boardroom somewhere, and trying to figure out this is what my customers need, this is what they're feeling. So when we talk about user experience, that is the main thing that we're covering, design thinking plus doing, is moving the design process, the intervention design process from a boardroom to the field. Are we able to create solutions, or are we able to determine pathways for intervention within the communities at the community level? So instead of just keeping the entire design process to ourselves, instead of keeping the entire ideation process to ourselves, are we able to create space so that the communities have a seat at the table? And moving from just coming up with a ton of ideas to figuring out how exactly do we create an implementation pathway for these ideas. So design thinking is good as far as getting the designer into the shoes of the person they're designing for, getting the development practitioner into the shoes of the communities they're coming up with interventions for. But how do we move from just now building ideas to implementing these ideas, and not just implementing them, but implementing them in a sustainable way?